What are the pros and what are the cons of cruising to Iceland? I'm Gary Bembridge. This is another of my tips for travelers. I'm currently on board a Saga Cruises in my cabin. This is the second time I've actually cruised to Iceland, and I thought it was a great time to share with you the pros and the cons, the good and the bad, about choosing to come to Iceland on a cruise rather than a land-based trip. What do you need to know? Probably one of the biggest pros and good things about choosing to cruise around Iceland rather than do a land-based is the fact that all of the key sites, all of the settlements, all of the towns are on the coastal areas. The center of Iceland is basically a large wasteland of lava, and so all the key sites and all the places that you're going to want to see, stop at and go to are around the coast. Therefore, going on a cruise is very logical. In fact, if you want to see Iceland by land, you have to drive around one key road that goes right around the island. This is Highway 1, the Ring Road. It is 882 miles long, 1,300 kilometers. So basically, if you want to see the island, you're going to have to go all the way around the outside. So the cruise is a great way of getting there. The Ring Road is not a particularly big road, and it can be very busy. So it makes a huge amount of sense to go on a cruise. It's going to take you to all of the key places, and all of the key sites that you want to see are within very easy access of the ports that you call on. The two big classic things that you're going to want to see are what's known as the Golden Circle out of Reykjavik, and then you also have the Jewels of the North. So if you go on the Golden Circle, you're going to see three of Iceland's most impressive and important landmarks. You're going to see Þingvellir, Gullfoss and the Giza. The other critical series of places you're going to want to see are what is known as the Jewels of the North. And the Jewels of the North are where you visit the bubbling mud pots of Namaskard. You then visit Dumburga, and then you go and see the incredible, beautiful Godafoss, the waterfall of the gods. So all of the key sites that you're going to want to see are on the coast, accessible on the coast. You're going to have to drive quite long distances. You can fly to some of these places if you want to, but you really need to get around the island to see the key places, so why not go on a cruise? Also on a cruise at all of the ports of call, you're also going to have a wide range of excursions. So the cruise line will have curated and pulled together all the important places you need to see, so you don't have to do any more research. And they will take you on things like whale watching. You can go and see birds like puffins. Some will even take you to key sites where the Game of Thrones series had some of its key scenes filmed. And of course, there will be a series of different excursions, particularly in places like Reykjavik, to the baths, like the famous Blue Lagoon. I think the next key reason for doing a cruise around Iceland rather than land-based is all of the benefits of going on a cruise. And I think these are particularly important when it comes to Iceland. The fact that on a cruise you only unpack and have to pack once. If you're going to try and see Iceland on land, you're going to have to keep moving between different places. You're going to have to be packing and unpacking quite a lot, so you get all of that hassle and stress taken away. Then of course you have all of the perks of being on a cruise ship. So for example, here on the Saga Cruises we had a choice of different places we could go and eat or have room service. Also here on board Saga there would be bands playing in the various bars. There would also be a show every night, which was either guest entertainers or a production show. And of course, even right down to the medical center, if you had any medical issues, that's all available. You don't have to worry once you're on land about dealing with all of that. There was a shop on board if you'd forgotten any bits and pieces. Coming to Iceland on a cruise, it just makes it so much easier, and you can just focus on the whole experience of enjoying the place. Another big pro is particularly for those people who don't like to fly or don't like the hassle of flying. You can actually do no-fly cruises from a number of places in Europe. So for example, out of the UK, you can cruise on cruise lines like the one that I'm on, which is Saga Cruises, and they will sail out of Dover right up to Iceland, around Iceland, and back to Dover. So you can actually avoid flying, particularly if you're UK based. There are other cruise lines that will come to Iceland out of other ports around mainland Europe. So definitely, if you are based in Europe or you want to minimize the amount of flying, going on a cruise to Iceland is definitely one way of doing that. For me, another big pro of going on a cruise rather than land-based is, in fact, when you're on land in Iceland, it's pretty expensive. If you want to have snacks, buy drinks, if you want to go out for meals, accommodation, hotels can all mount up, and it's surprisingly expensive in Iceland, which I guess makes sense because they have to ship so much stuff into the island, and Iceland is pretty far away. Certainly the first time I came to Iceland, I thought I was getting the exchange rate wrong because things seemed really expensive when I converted them, but that's not the case. Things are pretty expensive in Iceland. So the advantage, of course, coming on a cruise is you're going to know what it's going to cost you to get there, get around, and all those costs associated with eating, dining. So you're going to be able to know that before you go. And then once you're in Iceland, you're not going to have a lot of additional costs. Certainly the fact that Iceland is a pretty expensive place once you're here on land, going on a cruise is great because before you go, you're going to know how much it's going to cost you and you have that all locked down. For me personally, one of the big pros is that when you come on a cruise, you're going to learn a huge amount about the place, and they have really curated what you need to know and make sure you see the key sites. This is really important. So for example, on the cruise that I'm on with Saga, there are enrichment lectures. There's a whole series of experts who talk about the history, they talk about the ports, they talk about the sites, they talk about the folklore, they talk about the culture, they talk about the food. So you learn a huge amount, which is all included within your fares. Also on the cruise ship, you get destination guides for all of the ports with all the information around a little bit of the history, what to see, what to do, where to go, maps of the places to go. Also on the in-room television, you'll often find the cruise ship will have documentaries about Iceland. So one of the key things is you have a huge opportunity to learn about, know about, and understand what you're seeing, where to go, and how to do it without having to do any of the research yourself. Of course, then you also have the shore excursions team who will have been to Iceland a number of times, and you can just go there and ask questions and they will help you. So you have all these experts on hand, huge amounts of information about Iceland you can learn and get without having to do any extra work. And of course then you have all the excursions to choose from, and they will have chosen guides and experts. So again, you know you're going to see the places you need to see, and you're going to have guides who are local guides who know the place inside out. So those for me certainly are the 6 big pros, the 6 good things about coming to Iceland on a cruise. So what are the cons? What are things that may be less good about coming on a cruise? One of the key additional costs above your cruise fare is likely to be excursions. If you come to Iceland, you certainly want to go out and see all the great sites. Bear in mind, most cruise lines do not include excursions within your fare. So for example, here on Saga, everything other than excursions were pretty much included. So drinks were included, accommodation was included, of course, all the dining option, including specialty dining, was included, some Wi-Fi was included, and drinks were included. So the only extra really was, of course, things like spa treatments or shopping or souvenirs on land, but excursions were additional. Now, excursions can add quite a lot. So for example, to give you a sense of what that could be, if you go on a Golden Circle tour, that cost around about £124 per person, so about 150 US dollars. The Jewels of the North was about £179, which is about $200 per person. If you went whale watching, depending on where it was, that could be anything from £129 or $150 up to $200 or £190 per person. So do bear in mind that one of the downsides of going on a cruise is that you still will have excursions to do, and there is a cost associated with those. One of the cons that you could argue of coming on a cruise is that you are traveling around Iceland in a little bit of a bubble, that you're not on land, staying in hotels, eating in local restaurants. So you don't get as much immersion and interaction with local people. Of course, one of the things you could do if you come on a cruise is there will always be excursions which are going to give you more cultural immersion and opportunities to mix and get much closer to the Icelandic people. And there are some ports like Reykjavik where many cruisers will stay overnight. So for example, on this cruise, we had a night in Reykjavik. So of course you then have the opportunity to go out and experience much more of the city and the local bars. The other con one could argue is that a cruise isn't going to buffer and protect you from the crowds at the key sites, and certainly isn't going to guarantee you great weather. Iceland has become incredibly popular, certainly since about 2010. So many of these key sites, particularly on the Golden Circle and Jewels of the North, get very, very busy. And coming on a cruise is not going to give you any special access or ways of avoiding the crowds. Of course, the guides, when they take you around, will try and take you at the best times, but it is pretty difficult. Do the cons outweigh the pros? Well, the fact that I've come here for a second time cruising to Iceland probably answers the question. I think a cruise is a phenomenal way of seeing Iceland. And if you want to come to Iceland, you do really need to go around the whole island to see the key places. So why not do it on a cruise? I have many more videos, including some about Iceland, loads around cruising with tips and advice. So why don't you watch one of those right now?